most expensive Miuras that you can buy. I don't know if he'll ever sell it. This guy's an expert in Lamborghini Miuras, and he has a Miura that he found in a barn in Oregon, and it's unrestored. It's orange. Before they paint those cars, it's like as if it's probably better than from the factory.
Oh, for sure.
All the sponsorship BS, like that stuff doesn't work. Like
giveaways, all that stuff.
People see through it. They're like, do you think that we should do like a $500 gift card? And I literally told him, I'm like, that actually has the negative effect. That brings people in who are transactional and people who don't authentically want to give you feedback. It also makes me seem transactional. There's going to be this influencer capitulation where people are just like, why the F am I doing this? Why am I still posting? Like, what does it matter?
Welcome back to the J&B Body Works podcast, J&B Body Talks. I'm your host, Mikey Izzo. This is Joey Izzo, or Joe Izzo. As we're building this media aspect of the body shop, we've been taking a lot of inspiration from other brands and social media platforms in our niche, which is this overarching car community. And somebody that we are really excited to talk to today that has built himself an incredible social media platform through Instagram and other platforms is Hootie with Valvin Piston. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So do you want to start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I run an account called Valvin Piston. I started the account in January of 2016, so I've been doing it for 8 years. And really, the account is just a way for me to catalog the things that I love about classic cars. That's like it at its core. I started the account as a way to catalog it for myself, and then what I found was other people started liking it. Other people started following it, and it just turned into a way for me to, in some way, evangelize or display like these elements of cars that I think are beautiful to an audience. And so that's what it is. And I think I just post a picture or a piece of content every single day. In reality, I'm just a content aggregator. So 95% of the content on my page is not my own content. It's someone else's content. I like to give them credit every time I post. And I've just been doing that for 8 years. That's about it.
When it started, was there a vision behind it? Was there a brand identity that you wanted to try to portray?
You know, I don't really think so. I mean, you have to think back to Instagram in 2016. And Instagram in 2016 was really not what it is today. So Instagram today is, in my opinion, it's hyper refined. It's professional content. It's whether that's professional photography or video or even something like we're doing today, like clips of this are going to go on Instagram. Yep. And so if you look back to 2016, that wasn't the case. Like the bar wasn't there. And so I sort of started it just as a fun outlet. Like that was really it. There was no grand plan. There was no big monetization plan. I didn't have aspirations to build into a massive media empire. And honestly, I just chose cars and images or experiences or things that I like to display. So if you look at the page, a lot of it is European cars. That's what I like. A lot of it is racing-inspired cars. That's what I like. Years range from 60s to mid-2000s. So that's kind of the range I like to keep it in. I infuse a lot of motorsport content. So that could be onboard car footage through weekly meditations. That could be pictures and images, like vintage pictures and images.
Right.
And I think the goal of it is to sort of bring back this nostalgic feel of what a classic car or what classic motorsports really is. And you know, this is all driven by me, by the way. Valvin Piston is one person. So there's no big team. There's no intern. There's no whatever,
there's
HR.
No
yeah, there's no, it's just Valve. It's just one guy. And so, you know, it's what I like and what I appreciate. And it's like what evokes emotion out of myself. I want to communicate that to my audience.
And in the bio, you have something that was what initially, besides the aesthetic, which I want to get into a little bit about, was this kind of mantra that the page seems to live by, which is something along the lines of nights spent oil stained.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that. Where'd you get that from?
You know, I just, at the time, I think in 2016, I was living in San Francisco. I was like, I would get home from work. I would work fairly long hours. So sometimes I get home from work around 9:30 or 10 p.m. And I had this 70s BMW race car, and I would go down. I had a little garage spot under my apartment in San Francisco, and I'd like go work on my car. And then on the weekends, like I'd be working on my car, and I had like a hydraulic jack and some jack stands and like a set of like whatever 200-piece Craftsman toolkit, and like that's what I would do. And so when I created the account, it was like really for me. Like it wasn't like I was not trying to cater to some audience, and it was like that's what I did. And like, look, I'm not a mechanic by trade by any means. Like, and I would screw things up, and
don't bring me your car.
Yeah, I sit there and like Google things and try to figure it out, and like eventually you sort of learn. And so like what I wanted that account to be is like it's a memoir for those who want to spend their nights and weekends oil stained, and like that's what these cars do, is like caring for the car and fixing the car and figuring it out, like builds this emotional bond with the car. So when you're driving it, it's not just like this inanimate object that is soulless. Like I know, I know like the how it works, and I know how to care for it, and it knows how to care for me. And like because of that, I'm a little bit more gentle when closing the doors. I'm a little bit more cognizant of what it's like. You know, I don't want it to sit outside in the rain. Like I don't want it to be dirty. And
it's a living thing.
Yeah, it's like that's this concept of being oil stained is like, it's sort of like this kitschy phrase, but it really is like the commitment that you make to that vehicle and the relationship that you're going to build with that vehicle.
Right. Have you always been a car guy?
Yes. And I don't know what it was, but like ever since I was like as young as I can remember, I would memorize the makes, models of cars, the shapes, everything. I had like boxes of die-cast cars when I was a kid.
Is it hereditary?
My dad was into like old BMWs, so he had BMW 2002s growing up.
Nice.
He would fix his own cars, but he was never like hot rodding cars or doing anything like, we'd go out and like change his brakes or change his oil or stuff like that. I think I probably took it to another level, and but yeah, ever since I can remember. And then my brother's into cars, so in high school we built some E30 race cars.
Nice.
We like cut out the dash and like welded in the sunroof. It was like,
how did those do as race cars?
Turn into it was pretty bulletproof as a car. It's super light, rear wheel drive, manual. There's a reason why that platform is really good. People build them into spec E30 cars. So we raced that for a little bit. We sold it off, like just as much money as we put into it, we got out of it.
Are you still tracking or racing?
Not really. It takes a lot of time. It's
worth it.
It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of time, and like it's a lot of risk too. Like if you go to the track and something happens, something breaks. Like my ethos is like I want to be able to drive to the track, and then drive the car home. Like I don't want to trailer the car to the track. But you kind of roll the dice in that situation. Like if something happens, or like an axle blows, or like a brake caliper seizes.
Ready to risk it all out there,
yeah. Yeah, it's like, and so, my wife and I, we had a son like 5 months ago. You just can't like, I have my work is very demanding, so it's like.
What did you work?
I work in venture capital.
Okay. You work out of Manhattan?
I work. I run my own fund, so I work out.
Oh, great.
I go to the city once or twice a week, but I work out of my house. Yeah.
Very cool.
What was the poster car for you? A lot of us had a yellow or purple Murcielago, or Countach, Diablo, something like that. Did you have a poster car?
I think my Grail car is an F40. Okay. And I think I made that clear via Instagram. Like I get all these like stupid Instagram DMs like requests, and when I say stupid, I generally try to respond to every DM I get that is serious.
Got a lot of angry Instagram users right now going, God damn it.
Yeah. But you get some that are like, you just kind of have to troll. So like, I get this one all the time. People are like, I will buy your account, and it's usually like in some like translation system, and I'm sure they're bots. And I always just respond back with like $2.4 million because that's the price of a Ferrari F40. Right. I'm like, if you wire me $2.4 million, I'll send you my entire phone. You can have everything. It. Yeah. So that's the Grail car. I think when I was a kid, the earliest model diecast that I can remember, I had a British Racing Green Series 1 E-Type convertible. Sweet. As a 1/18 scale diecast, and then I had a P4, what is it? P45. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Ferrari.
The new one?
No, sorry, not the new one. What is it?
P330.
P330 or P4?
It kind of looks like a Maserati, the birdcage Maserati.
It's whatever that Ferrari race car was based off of, right?
Yeah, it's whatever the P45 is based off of? I think it's like
Yeah,
a
P330.
P330. Is that what it is? Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I had one of those.
That's probably like the most gorgeous car ever made.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So behind our shop, there was a mechanic shop called Euro Mechanica. He did mostly BMWs and Saabs. And his previous life was like the Maserati like equivalent was that birdcage car. It's like very rounded, all aluminum, and it was a race car. So he worked for race teams, and he would just like recreate every weekend like new panels off of an English wheel because he would just crash them and weld them back together. So he was actually like a really talented fabricator, and I guess he just found it easier to pay the bills doing mechanic work. But it was a pretty cool little shop. It was like a museum in there. He had like bicycles all hung up on the wall, and he was a really knowledgeable guy. But I love that car.
Yeah, it's really pretty. All of those like old race cars, like all the panels are hand formed. They're really beautiful how they're done. A guy that I met through Instagram, his name is Jeff Meyer. I think his Instagram handle is SoCalJam1. But he is like one of what I love about Instagram is like there's all these people and they're all like experts in these weird niches, and we can talk about
Or so they say.
How to build an Instagram account and what I think works today versus doesn't work. But like this guy's an expert in Lamborghini Miuras, and he has a Miura that he found in a barn in Oregon, and it's unrestored. It's orange. It's probably one of the most expensive Miuras that you can buy. I don't know if he'll ever sell it, but he found another Miura. Getting to the story of this guy who would work these panels, he found another Miura that was the daughter of the Shah of Iran. When she went to college in LA, she had a white Miura with blue interior. I don't know if he found in the back of the shop or someone just knew that he was the Miura guy. And so he bought this car, and he was fixing, because the car had been damaged, it had been hit in the front, and he was fixing the nose of the car. By the way, that in of itself, like there's like one guy who knows how to do that. But in this process of fixing that, he took the entire car, and this was sort of an idea we had together. He was like, should I repaint the car or what? Because just the bonnet was raw metal. Yeah. And I said, you should take the entire car down to metal and just show that that this car is straight. There's no Bondo or no dings or anything on this car. And he did it. He called it the bare metal Miura. Sick. And he later sold it and it got, some nice number. But you look at this car and like you look at that body and it's like, oh my God, there's not like, if you took one of my cars down to metal, like there'd be like pin marks here and there, and like all this other stuff. And Bondo,
we've been doing a lot of that lately.
Yeah, exactly. You guys know this best.
Yeah, we just got a 356, and car looked pretty good. And I actually took it out on Christmas Eve and blew the transmission. So we had the transmission out. We take the engine out. My dad's like, I don't even like the color. Let's just paint it. So we took it all down to bare metal. Yeah. And we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So it's looking a lot better now. But you see a lot of stuff that, look, we could tell it wasn't perfect, and you could see some stuff from the outside. Us probably better than a lot of other people. But so there was some stuff where like, wow, like who wasn't like, this guy needs to get arrested, whoever was doing this stuff.
And there are guys that they're just so good at this, like Rod Emory on the 356s. Like you see some of the cars that come in and they take it down to bare metal, and it's the nose has just been like spot welded there, and it's all like, it's like all rough. The metal's all crunchy. Like it was hit in the back and the metal was like rippled. Yeah. And like, he's just like a master. Like they work either, I don't know if they cut it out or what they do, but they work it. And before they paint those cars, it's like as if it probably better than from the factory.
Oh, for sure.
It's like insane. Yeah. Like the quality of work and it's like the skill that it takes to do that is like,
it is insane,
Yeah.
So before you had the account, were you like a Tumblr guy? Because it's kind of got that like Tumblr vibey.
No, does it have a Tumblr vibe? I don't know what a Tumblr vibe is, but I'm gonna take it as a compliment.
Yeah. It's just like kind of cool photos that kind of just like really give you an emotion.
I wasn't a Tumblr guy. I just like, it's like I try to spend a lot of time like curating it, and I have been posting less frequently lately just because of, the baby and all this other stuff, and my work is particularly busy this time of year, but it's like I try to spend a lot of time like really curating the photos and like making sure that it's good content. It's not like, for me, it's not just putting out content to put out content. Because once again, like I'm not doing it for anything.
You're proud of
it's
it.
like, I want to do it because I'm proud of what I'm putting out.
Do you have like a mental checklist in your head?
Yeah, you have like you were kind of giving us that, your verbal idea, like this is my philosophy on it. Do you have that written? Do you have that very understood? Or was that kind of off the tongue?
It's not written down. I know things that will do better than other things, and I think some of the content that does really well, I think is like cheaper is what I call it, like cheaper content. Okay, like crash videos would do really well, or like burnout videos do really well. But like in my mind, unless it's a crash or a burnout that's like really specific to like my style, I tend to try not to do that. But I know that what we'll do, here's an example of a piece of content that I posted that is one of those videos that's in my style. It's a Ferrari F40 driving on the Nürburgring, and it skids out and almost hits a wall. It's like really, really close to hitting the wall.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it just like drives off.
Yeah. And it's like from like 1995 when this video was posted. And it's like, I knew that piece of content would do well, and it was fortunate that it like fell into my intersection of like what I post. You know, I love like Whistling Diesel, this guy on YouTube. He just like does like ridiculous stuff. Like if he smashed a Ferrari F40, like I don't know that I would like post that piece of content because like
it's cheap.
Yeah, it's in my opinion, it's like cheap content. Like, is it entertaining? Yeah, I'd watch that video all day, but like, I mean, I would cry during it, but like, it's like cheap content. So like, I don't have like a written down checklist, but I subconsciously, I've been doing this. I've been doing this for 8 years. So like 8 years times 365 days is, what is that? Close to like 3,000 days of doing it. Like that's a lot, you know? So it's like, I kind of just know like what will do well, what won't do well, what sort of speaks to the brand.
How often do you look at something and you're like, this is it. This is like the
my
exact,
God,
but then you go to it later and you're like, this is garbage. Like you like fall out of love with it. Does that ever happen?
You know, I'll post a piece of content where I think that's it, and then like the reception isn't good. You know, it sort of is what it is, but like I don't take it down or anything like that. Very rarely do I find a piece of content that I'm like, this is it. I've never seen this before. And like this falls squarely in what I'm doing. And it's also content that tends to do really well is like of a certain time or something. So it's like urgency to the content. So the example is this guy, I think in like Eastern Europe, like took this like Formula 2 car on the road and was driving it on the highway. And it was like 6 hours after someone took a video of it. Like I woke up that morning and I saw it and I like immediately reposted this content. And I was like, this is the type of stuff is like that I would do, like go buy a Formula 1 car and like drive it on the road. Is like, this is a piece of content that will go viral. So like that was an example of like something that's immediate that falls into the wheelhouse. Like sometimes like it'll fall flat, but it's usually because of the time of the day or posting something like that is like
interesting.
Yeah.
So I do want to get into a little bit about that, like more of the specifics or I don't know if it's really research. It sounds like you just have your 10,000 hours and that's how you kind of figure things out.
Yeah.
But for you, right, how important is it to be authentic when you're putting something out?
Oh, yeah. When I was like driving here, I was thinking about, things that I wanted to hit on, and authenticity is hands down. So I think it's like two things.
Okay.
One is consistency. Okay. Just showing up every day. Like you can't, if you like, for whatever reason, if you're a brand or you are an individual or whatever, and you want to grow your presence, consistency is super important. So just like make sure you show up. And also, what would boost that a little bit is if you try to learn from that consistency. Okay, like what worked, what didn't work, all this other stuff. The second thing that's really important is authenticity. And in my opinion, like money can buy you a lot of things. You can go take money and you can grow an account to 1 million followers if you really want to tomorrow. You can buy all the people essentially. But you can't buy authenticity. So you need to understand like what is really authentic to you and like what do you need to get out in the world? What do you believe that people need to see more of or uncover? And what story or what journey do you want to take people on? And then you need to be like, that needs to be fully authentic to your core. And the thing is, that is even more important now than it was 10 years ago. So like if you think about Instagram 10 years ago, it like just launched. It was like maybe like 2 years old or something. At the time, Instagram was like very authentic because like no one was creating like highly professional content. And then what happened is like we went through this phase of like highly professional, highly edited content. Like the picture of the person sitting next to their car with their hat, with like the discount code in their bio and like all that other stuff is like becomes like overly professionalized. And the audience knows that. Because the audience is spending a lot of time on social media.
Right.
And they are getting trained every single day to identify authenticity, right? They really
disregard. Like
as soon as they see like use the code VNP10 for 10% off. They're done. They're on the next thing. And not only that, they discount you the next time they're going to see you. So it like ripple effects across your content. And so authenticity is super, super important. And by the way, this is getting worse and worse for younger generations. So like Gen Z, they're more digitally native. They spend more time on their phones, on these apps, and like authenticity is everything. It's like, it is everything. Like if you're not passionate about it and you don't think you can be one of the best, it's like really difficult to break out. It really is.
I think it's hard for people though. Like I struggled with this myself, especially when we were starting this, before we started seeing some real growth with it, was dealing with this buzzword, which is like imposter syndrome. I never thought I was a creative person. I never thought I was anybody special. And so I think one thing that was hard for me, that like what you're saying, is at first believing what I liked or thought was authentic was going to be palatable to other people. But it sounds like you're talking more about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but not caring as much about what people think, just figuring out what it is that's interesting to you and then going towards that. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I think like you have to find what's interesting to you, but you also need to understand how the game on the field is played. When Instagram started and I started my account, I was probably like one of 3 content aggregators, automotive content aggregators out there. And let's say Instagram had 100 million users at that time and it grew to 2 billion users or whatever. I'm just making these numbers up. Someone is going to correct me in the comments, I'm sure. That's 20x growth. So like my account should grow 20x. Just like if the pool of people, if the pool of people is normally distributed, I should grow 20x. Now, in reality, if I'm showing up every day and I'm consistent, I'm learning about what I'm doing, I should grow more than that. And so I had this massive tailwind behind me. Today, if you're showing up and you're saying, hey, this is what I need to get out there, you actually need to think about like, how can I do this in a unique way? Or how can I do this differently than other people? Or like, what is it that I'm going to do? And so like, I brought up this guy, the Mura guy, right? He is like the specialist in Muras, but there's another guy, his name is like Peloton 25, I think. And he is like the McLaren F1 guy. He has like 30,000 followers. All he talks about is McLaren F1s. And like, if I'm in like a comment section and someone posts a McLaren F1, like I tag him. I'm like, was this the one that was repainted or is this the bot? And he knows everything about it.
Right.
Or like there's this account, Patina Research, that takes like these old school videos about mostly like motorsport stuff, whether it's JDM or whatever, and then he like interlaces like hip hop and rap songs on top of it. That's just like a niche that would not exist when I started my account. And like I can't really go there either, because like I've created my brand around what it is today. So it's like, I think like you brought up this point, is like, okay, is it your mission or is it like what the feedback you get from your audience? I think it's ultimately both, but it's more so you have to be smart about your mission, is what I'm saying. Is like, okay, like I want to get content X out there. How can I do it in an interesting way that like other people haven't done yet? And then you can sort of start to get feedback from your audience.
So do you think you can grow anything? Like if, let's say tomorrow I have an idea, I build this niche, I have a solid idea of what my goal is, and I start creating. Do you think there's room for growth within, like specifically with an Instagram page, for example? I think the guy who's really into candy peanuts, or lawnmowers, can that guy? I think that guy can grow.
Yeah, I think you could.
So not as much as cars, because
No, I think you could. I think the weird thing about the internet is that it has aggregated so many people that even like crazy weird little niches have like millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people who are like somewhat interested in it.
Yeah.
And so like the guy who's like really into lawnmowers, like tell me about all the like unique things about this lawnmower. Like walk me through how you start this lawnmower, change the blades or do this, or like what's this lawnmower good for over that lawnmower, or like take the lawnmower apart, or like restore it. Take me through a story of restoring a lawnmower.
Yeah, that's
like,
true, because I watched a lot of videos of this guy cleaning washing machines.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I got really into this thing.
Yeah.
I can't find him.
We've
now,
all been there before.
I love that guy.
We've all been there before.
So like, I think that if you have a certain area that you're really passionate about, and you do sort of like obviously an understanding of like what is unique or what's a unique thing that I can like show to my audience about this, I think you can grow anything.
So then if we were starting a new page today, you and me, Hootie and I, starting Valvin Piston from scratch, didn't exist. How would you do it? Because I know one of the things that you were just saying before is it's completely different than it was when you first started. So let's actually start there. How do you think you would, if you were going to educate the people, they wanted to start a page, what would you do?
Well, what is this like an actual like case study? Like, do we have an idea that we're starting?
Let's say Valvin Piston never existed and you were going to start Valvin Piston today. How would you do it?
Okay.
Like, what are the keys to growth?
I think first off, I would probably not start on Instagram. You didn't see that coming, did you?
No.
I would probably start.
No.
I'd probably start a YouTube channel. Now, the reason why I say I'd start a YouTube channel is because monetization on YouTube is much more aligned with the content that you create.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that because like I want to make money off the page. I'm saying that the monetization allows you to feed money back into making interesting content. Right. So like Doug DeMuro, his content is genius. And the reason why his content is genius is because one, his monetization is directly aligned to views. But the genius part about it is like these videos, when you post them, they have what I call tails, right? So like you get a bunch of views initially, and then over time that line flattens and you have a tail at the end.
Okay.
If you look at like Whistling Diesel's content versus Doug DeMuro's content, I would bet that Doug DeMuro's content has fatter tails than Whistling Diesel's, which means
he's all up top.
Right. Whistling Diesel is like probably most 80, 90, whatever percent of his views come in the first 24 hours.
Right.
Doug DeMuro, if I want to buy a W220 S65 AMG, guess whose video pops up?
Right.
It's not
Doug
Whistling
DeMuro.
Diesel's.
Right.
It's Doug DeMuro's because like I'm interested, and he goes me through all the quirks and features, and he drives it, then he scores it.
I love the
So,
quirks and features.
So what I would do is I would probably start a YouTube account. I'd probably do something that has content that can be referred back to a lot. And I'd probably do something that I'm passionate about. So one thing I'm passionate about is like fixing cars and showing people how to fix them. And this is something that, content that I rely on. But a lot of the content that I look at is like, okay, I want to do an oil change on my Porsche. It's like some dude that did this 12 years ago on a grainy like Motorola Razr, like shot it. And I'm like, this is awful. Like, let's like do some like high quality content. We'd buy a car, do all of the maintenance of it. How do you change the suspension out? How do you change the oil out? How do you change this? How do you change that? How do you change that? Sell the car, go buy another one, and just make this content over and over and over again. And like, you're just giving people are going to come to that because it's instructional.
Right.
And your tails are going to be so fat. And by the time you like a year from now, after you've made 300 pieces of content, or maybe not that much, that's a lot, but 150 pieces of content, you're going to start making real cash flows. Yeah. And then you're going to be buying cars and doing crazier stuff. How do you change the oil on a Ferrari F40? Like, there you go.
I want to know
that. Start doing crazy things. And the point of the video is like you do everything. And for me, that falls into my ethos. My ethos is I love working on things. I talked about this emotional bond you create with your car. I think that's like content that people would watch.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that because we just had Larry Casilla from MONYC come in, and he was saying something very similar when he first started the channel that he started on. It was guys like Matt Farah who were making these videos that were sensational, and the reason why the conglomerate that was running those YouTube channels picked him up was because what they noticed was his initial jump, that initial tail or with the sensation wasn't high, but his growth was consistent.
Yes.
Because nobody cared in 10 years the newest BMW 10 years ago. There was a select group of people who cared about that, but his stuff, the word that he used was evergreen.
Yeah.
His stuff was evergreen.
Exactly.
So I think that's really interesting that you're bringing that up. So try to make evergreen content.
I love Whistling Diesel, so nothing against him or whatever. Like the guy's
he's
done really well. He's built this very strong following, but like I don't think that people are going to go back and like watch Whistling Diesel's like old videos of like a truck that he like destroyed or a truck that he built. But like people are going to go back and say, "Oh yeah, how did Larry like polish his car or get rid of the salt on his car in the winter, or like do the wheels or like do that stuff?" Like those are things that people like naturally search for.
Right.
And you have like natural SEO.
Yeah, the other huge problem with those two guys, with Whistling Diesel, and something that I think Mr. Beast deals with all the time, is you can't step laterally. Like, what the hell are you going to do after you smash an SF90 or whatever the hell that car was? Like, are you going to smash an F40 like you said? Like, it gets to a point, hopefully not. It gets to a point like, what am I going to do next? So I think that's another really important point of what you're saying is try to make lateral steps.
Yeah.
Stuff that otherwise you're going to run into a dead wall.
So I sort of avoided your question, which is like I didn't actually make an Instagram page. What I would actually do is use the YouTube content to then feed into Instagram.
I know,
so
I think that's a great idea.
That just becomes evergreen, and like Instagram becomes your channel to get people to land and subscribe on your YouTube page. I just think that, like once again, like I don't use Instagram for monetization, but there's no like the ways to monetize an Instagram page. Look, I have thought about this. Trust me, I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot, and the ways to monetize an Instagram page are not very conducive to maintaining authenticity.
Right.
Like you have to like sell shirts or sell hats, and I do that. I'm wearing one of my hats.
That's sick.
But like this, like I don't make money off this stuff. I go find lots of new old stock hats off eBay. I buy them. You can't buy hundreds of them, so I buy them like one to 10 at a time, and then I put my patch on them, and I sell them for like I probably make like at the end of the day after shipping and all that stuff, $5 to $10 a hat. The only reason why I do it is because I want to like see someone in a random setting with one of my hats on who I have no idea who that is.
You're losing money doing that.
Oh yeah. If you include my time, I am way negative. So like, but there's no way to authentic like all the sponsorship BS, like that stuff doesn't work.
The
like
giveaways, all that stuff.
People see through it. Like I have a company that I'm advising, and this company was like, hey, do you think, like they're trying to get some beta users. They're like, do you think that we should do like a $500 gift card? And I literally told them, I'm like, that actually has the negative effect. Because that brings people in who are transactional and people who don't authentically want to give you feedback. Right. And then it also makes me seem transactional. And I don't want to seem transactional. And I don't care about the $500.
Right.
So I think that Instagram is really hard to translate. Like there's going to be this influencer capitulation where people are just like, why the F am I doing this? Why am I still posting? Like, what does it matter? And that's why I just think YouTube's a better platform.
I think that makes a lot of sense. How important is storytelling?
I think storytelling is like one of the most important things because people inevitably just get tired of the content. And so you have to think about like, how do you go to the next level? And I can talk about how I did that with Valvin Piston, but some of the accounts that I like the most are these accounts that are essentially telling a story through their content. And it could be them, in an automotive sense, building a car, or it could be them like, I'm going to run across the US or whatever it is. That's how I'm not even interested in running. I don't like running. Right. But like I'll follow this guy who runs across the US because I'm into the story. You know?
Remember when living, sorry to cut you off, but remember when living in a car was like the biggest thing? Like if you're a loser, you live in your car. Yeah. Now I follow people.
Live in a van down by the river.
Yeah, exactly. Now, honestly, there's people who just make content about living in a van and I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, because it's unique and it's interesting and you can, So, like, I think the story is essential, and I think in absence of that, you need to think about how to, like, take your thing, to the next level and, like, what comes next. With Valvin Piston, like, my whole ethos behind it is, like, sort of, like, the community that I want to build. And so I do this rally every summer called the 24 Hours of Le Mans Talk. I host it with this company. The company's name is Rally. We host in the Hamptons, and that's like we bring about 50 cars, 100 people. We host people, and
that's around the bridge.
Yes, it's the day before the bridge.
Someone tried to follow me into that last year. I didn't quite make it, but
yeah, we'll get you there. And so it's like a way to bring all these people together and like have community. And once again, we don't make any money on that. We actually lose money. We give away a bunch of prizes and we have to pay for, the venues and stuff like that. But it's like a way to bring people together. And like we've been able to level up and like work with some amazing brands like Leica and La Marzocco and De Bethune, which is a watch company. They sponsored us last year. They're great. So like, it's like turned into something that's real and it goes beyond just breaks. What is it called? The fourth wall? What is that? Yeah. Term. Yeah. It's like, it breaks the screen, cracks your screen.
IRL.
Yeah. So we try to do stuff like that as like the way that, we break through.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you were saying, how you use storytelling with Valvin Piston? Yeah.
So with Valvin Piston, my feed is mostly just curated content. So it's cars, videos, images I like. I sort of have some types of content that I post. The most common is like the weekly meditation. So every Wednesday I post it's onboard car footage, no talking, race car or rally car or motorbike. And the funny thing about it is like not a meditation at all because it's like engine screaming and it's like really scary. They're going really fast and like, but like for me, driving is like my meditation. So I thought that this was funny and sort of semi-ironic. And then there are some other types of content that I post. You can go browse it through and you'll sort of start to find themes. The storytelling really comes in my stories is actually where I share most of my personal life. So it's like things that I'm doing with my cars, things that I am doing. Like, you know, we were talking about how my watch got damaged. I was taking my followers through that and also explaining to them, what should you do in that situation? Like, I'm the one who had to pay $2,000 for a new dial. I don't want you to have to do that. So what you should do in that situation, or if I'm like modifying my car, like this is my project, this is my goal with the project, this is how much it costs, these are the brands I'm collaborating with. And so that's how I bring them through those stories, you know, and as like the collection evolves or the cars that I have evolves, like they get brought through that story. And sometimes those pictures bleed into the, you know, main page, but you know, the main page for the most part is just curated.
One thing I learned from you recently with storytelling, and something that we've been trying to emulate here, and actually after this has just been getting my mind thinking about stuff that we can kind of take onto our own social media. You recently put your 993 away for the season, and you did a story post about your winterizing process.
Yeah.
And it taught me two things. One, stories, oftentimes I just find myself tapping, going like this. Yeah. It showed me a bit about how to stop people in their tracks. And the other thing was, you can make a story, not the Instagram TM story, but a story about anything.
Yeah.
As simple as just putting your car away for the winter. Yeah. And I learned a lot about you, I think, about how you are, how particular you are with your car. And I learned a lot about how to do that functionally.
And by the way, so that piece of content, that type of content does really well. Like winterizing your car, washing your car. Why does it do really well? Because everyone, I mean, if you're following my page, you probably have a car, but it's something that's accessible to everyone. It's not like, how do you polish the rear Lexan of your Ferrari F40? It's like, well, guess what? There's only 1,300 other people that have that problem. Like, it's not a very...
None of them are looking at it themselves.
Yeah, it's not a very wide audience, but like, you know, a lot of people in the Northeast, they put their cars away for the winter. A lot of people in the Northeast want to protect their cars against salt. So how do you wash it appropriately? All those things, like that type of content is really good. Like, so for you guys do body work, and it's like, what are the typical areas that rust on a car? In the winter, if you had to wash 3 areas, like where would you wash? Mm-hmm. Like that's like a piece of content that I think would do really well. Right. And then, by the way, your community might respond and be like, oh, what about like under this part or the fender or like in the back or like whatever it is. And so like thinking about those types of content that's like widely accessible is also, that's oftentimes what gets the most
traction.
I don't want to say it might not actually get the most traction, but I think it's the most productive. Mm-hmm. I think what gets the most traction is like, oh, this guy crashed this really expensive car.
Extreme.
Or this, you know, this person paid this much money for this thing. Like people, you know, it's just like the 7 sins, like people bleed into that.
That also pulls in people that have no interest in cars.
Yeah, exactly. It's like not great intention. So you're trying to think about like
cheap content, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. Like what content will actually do well and also be productive for people.
Right.
So that's like, yeah, what I try to do.
Is there like a decade or an era or like a section of like the car world that you feel like is more in line with what you do or does the best?
That's an interesting question.
I feel like we see a lot of like the most expensive, the most extreme, the newest kind of like catches a little more fire than anything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, what have you seen?
What does the best with an audience? Is that or like
what sect of the car world? Like
yeah.
is there a decade? Is it 90s cars that you feel like you kind of like throw out there? Or
yeah, I think like 90s cars tend to do really well. You know, if you post F40s or Lamborghinis or Countachs are 80s, but they'll do really well. Air-cooled Porsches, like I have almost stopped posting air-cooled Porsches on my page. Like if you look
saturated.
at yeah, it's just like it's boring. Like I don't like. Do you want to see that? Like, look, I own an air-cooled Porsche, and like I love my car, and I think it drives exceptionally well. But I'm just like, you kind of go to an event, and there's like 50 air-cooled Porsches. You're like, cool. I'll park mine all the way over there, so no one sees it. So it's like, I think at least for me, what I ask myself is, how can I like introduce new things to people, but also make sure the content is like good and gets engaged with, right? Is like. I think you go too far out on the spectrum and you like kind of lose your audience. But my goal every day is like pull my audience a little further away from this like comfort zone of air-cooled Porsches. You know, like if we can label the comfort zone as air-cooled Porsches, like,
I actually like that
how do you like pull get people out just a little bit further and like show them something a little bit more esoteric and a little bit more esoteric and a little bit more esoteric and like expand their minds a little bit. If you look back at my account and you look at like what I posted in year 2 versus what I post now, like year 2 was a bunch of like 300 SL gull wings, Ferrari F40s, and air-cooled Porsches. And you can go back and like look at this. I don't know the exact number, but I can roughly tell you off the top of my head that that's right. And like now I try to like, I just don't post that stuff because it's like, I'm bored of it.
Right.
Like, all right. I told you my grail car is an F40, but how many times can I look at like more pictures of F40s? Like,
Right.
Do your interests and like wants kind of parallel that? Like, is your next car out of that? Like, what's your next car?
Yeah. I mean, it depends what the budget is.
So let me phrase it because this is a great question. Dream 3-car garage, unlimited budget, daily driver, weekend car, and we know your grail car, but car that you would just leave in your driveway.
Well, first I'd like to know, like, you know, what's real life? Like, what is the next car if you had to guess?
Yeah. So I don't want to say because I don't want people to bid these up. I don't know. I looked at Alfa Romeo, like Sprint GTs, so like 65 Alfa Romeos. They're kind of hard to find because a lot of them
They're very rusty.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you guys probably know that best. And they were cheap for a long time, so they weren't repaired very well. So you know the rocker panels get especially rusty, and then they just replace it with one steel panel, which is not very good for value. So I looked for those for a long time. I would like one of those, a GTA. I like more. I mean, I like race cars, and I like things that I can drive, and I don't necessarily care about like original paint and like has the original stamp manual and like all this other stuff. Yeah, I like drivers. I like to drive my cars, and I like things that are modded. And so I would love like a Alfa Romeo Sprint GT that's like sort of raced out a little bit. Like if the budget extends up like a couple $100,000, like I think an early Diablo is like pretty interesting. If the budget extends up a little bit more, I think like a SE30 Diablo is pretty interesting right now. I think other things that are slept on are like esoteric Group C race cars that you have to import from Europe. That like a March or a Spice, like brands you've never heard of.
You've never
like,
heard of any of
yeah,
those,
there's
yeah.
not like a Porsche 962 that's going to run you like $2 million, but you know, there'll be like a few hundred, maybe like 300 to 400K. But they're like crazy cars, and they have turn signals, so you can probably get it registered. E-type race cars, I think, are gorgeous. Those run like 200-300K. Series 1 E-type cars, preferably convertible with a hardtop, I think is prettier. What else would I go for?
Are you a car collector? Do you lose a car when you get a car? You're trying to build it out? Like, what's your...
Ooh, I think that if you don't have a mechanic on staff, it's really hard to get above 5 cars and like actually care for them and take care of them well. So if I get in that situation and I hit that limit, then yeah, you kind of gotta let one go. But I would like to like have some experience. Like if I need to let my 993 go, I'd like to have a 993, something that replaces it that's air cooled in some shape or form, like overlaps with it. Dream 3-car garage. This is not going to follow your rubric of daily driver, whatever, but it's Ferrari F40, obviously, Series 1 GT40, and a 73 2.8 RSR.
Nice.
So that would probably be the daily driver. And then the GT40 is a weekend car, or maybe the F40 is a weekend car.
Right.
I don't know how you
They're
rank
both
those,
kind of in
but
the same.
No practicality in my taking an Uber for everything else.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's something that you hate about running the Valvin Piston page?
One thing I don't really like is like some people are like pretty entitled. You know, they'll message me a lot and they'll like demand things, and like I'm just like, what? I don't know you, and you don't know me, and
We owe these people
I don't
nothing.
yeah, I don't.
I owe you nothing.
You're not paying for this service or something like that. Like
Yeah, I've dealt with some of that.
Yeah, and like this sort of comes, you know, we host this rally over the summer and we can only have so many cars. We're limited by space at the starting location, ending location, and like, you know, people will demand spots there. And I'm like, look, essentially I am paying for people to attend.
It's like your birthday party.
Yeah. So this is not like, it's not like some free community service that I'm doing or like charity that I'm providing. It's like an event, like any other event. What's that big fashion event? The Met Gala. Mm-hmm. Like I can't walk in the Met Gala. Most people can't, and that's just the way it is. Like, I'm not saying that this event's the Met Gala, but like, you see what I'm saying? It's like, they're like, demand to attend. I'm like, what? Like, I'm not stopping by your house for dinner.
Right.
Like telling you, cook me dinner. I'm here.
Yeah.
But like,
like the page it's curated.
Yeah, I think, and look, it's a good thing that people want to come to the event, but this happens in other respects too. Like, sometimes I'll post ways to get information, and I posted like recently this weekend. I'm like, what's going on with the Christian Horner investigation? Like, if anyone's in F1, and I said like, I will not share. Then like, I had a bunch of people DM me being like, what are the details? Tell me the details. I'm like, did you read the last sentence of the last story? And they're like, oh, I read it. What are the details? And I just don't respond. I just leave them on read. I'm like,
you can't read, huh? Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't owe you. And it's like not that many. Most people are pretty good. There's one thing that actually, here's another thing that annoys me. So recently Instagram has moved from more of a algorithmic feed. I mean, this has been a trend over time, and the algorithmic feed has been overtaken by Reels. And so this happens more so on video content. But I'll get these, and I read through every single comment that gets posted on a picture.
Really? Wow.
Yes, every single one I read through, and I like every single one, which signifies that I've read it. Okay, so there's not a comment that goes by that I do not read. Everyone out there, be careful. So I read through all the comments. And what I've noticed is there are people who post negative comments, and like I'll look at their page and they don't even follow me. And like they'll like be like, whatever. It's like some guy driving something. He's like, this guy can't drive stick. Or like I posted some images of like former Lewis Hamilton Pagani Zonda that got crashed. And it was like, that guy can't drive the car. It's like, well, the car was like owned by two professional race car drivers, so like they both could drive it, and they actually both crashed it. So like, and there's always someone who doesn't follow me, and I'm like, I literally go and I restrict them. So there's this feature on Instagram where you can restrict people. It's not blocking them, it's restricting them. So what it does is their comments don't get shown to everyone else. Okay, so they are restricted.
It's like they're on an island.
They're just in an empty room shouting by themselves.
I love
and
that.
They don't know that they're restricted. So I just restrict all those people.
I didn't know about that. We gotta start using that, Elvis.
Yeah, hit the restrict feature.
The restrict button's great.
Like I see, I mean, you're probably in a little bit of a different boat because people are a little more interested in what you have to say. But I see a lot of people, and just to like comment on a random page that like if it's not your page, like no one's gonna read. Yeah. It's like, are you sick? Something like, who cares? Like, do you think anyone cares? Like,
yeah.
I see it all the time, especially with us when we post stuff, because I think, like you said, people are entitled, and a thing that goes hand in hand with that is people think that they are much smarter than they are, or to have, when we're posting a clip of a repair and we're giving the certifiable documentation for how to repair a quarter panel on a Bentley.
You're using glue?
Yeah.
You're a clown.
Yeah.
Well, me and the engineers over at Bentley who've been doing this their whole lives are the most qualified people to tell me that this is how we're doing it, are not clowns.
Yeah.
And who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go to their page and it's like, dog lover. It's like, sick, dude. Like, have fun with your dog, bro.
Yeah. It's like, I just learned that, so one thing is like, if you don't like those comments, they fall to the bottom. So part of my mechanism of liking or not intentionally not liking a comment, I read through everything, is that the unliked ones fall to the bottom. So people generally would never see them. So that's sort of like my semi-restrict. And then the full restrict is you just like, don't let them go. But like, you're going to get, I mean, like in general, my content is less divisive than most people's content, but like, let's go to the most divisive stuff. Like someone giving like nutrition advice on Instagram, like you just get like the most like emotional responses from both sides. Like, this doesn't work, or like blah, 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 or like this, I didn't lose weight or I gained weight or whatever that.
Yeah, you're not a dietitian. Like,
yeah, it's like you just like, these are just emotional responses from people.
Nonsense,
and like, it's a benefit and curse of the internet is that it gives everyone a,
platform.
It puts everyone in the room, right? You're all in the same room shouting. And so that's good because you have good actors in the world who uncover information and who enlighten you and expand your thinking or teach you about certain areas you never thought about. But then you also have people shouting in the room who are just like the annoying person in the room that you're like, dude, shut up.
Have you ever had like a disaster where you're like, I need to like rectify something? I mean, obviously there's no monetization involved, so like how disasters could be. We're like, like
You ever post something that somebody who owned the content was like, yo.
Oh yeah. So that happens actually far more rarely than you would think. But there are people that will say, can you take the content down? Even though I tag them and I give them, and in my mind, like, I am your megaphone, right? So like I see this content come in and like I help bring visibility to your page. Now, some people don't think about it that way, and that's totally cool. I'll take the content down. I posted one time there was this image that was like a 1965 Porsche sitting right next to a new Porsche. I think it was a 992, and it was showing the size discrepancy. And I remember this very vividly because I had just landed in Indonesia. And I posted this piece of, or I posted it right before I got to bed, but I just got into my like hotel or whatever and got Wi-Fi. And I woke up in the morning and this thing had gone like totally viral, but like all the comments were like, this image is Photoshop. Like, I thought I trusted you, all this other stuff. I mean, like, was it like a crisis? Not really. So I took it down and then like I reposted the actual version. It wasn't the end of the world. But there was another time too when I'm not going to say who the company is or what it does or anything, but this company does some work on cars, and I posted their work because I think what they do is interesting. And in the comments, as you guys know, people get emotional about this stuff, and they're like commenting on this work that they did. And the company that did the work started getting in the comments and getting like aggressive with everyone. Okay, so like to your point, like what I do is I just don't like it or I restrict them. I don't go back and I don't like get angry at people or like this. It's just not worth it. Like there's no point. Because there's just always going to be, you just have to accept there's always going to be people like that. But they were doing that. And so I DM'd them and said, hey, can you stop doing that? I was like, this makes you look bad and also makes me look bad. And I said, if you keep doing it, I'm going to take the content down. And it was like this whole thing. They're like, don't fold to the audience like that. I'm like, dude, like I'm not the one folding as I'm not commenting. Like you need to stop doing it.
People that live with their mom, like who are like,
they'll just fall to the bottom. No one will read this. Like just let it fall to the bottom. And so I ended up having to take it down. And like, I've never posted a piece of content of theirs ever again. And I just like,
have you ever had a situation similar to that where like you had like an input from someone and you're like, wow, this made like an impact that I didn't think I'd see? Like, you know, this is a far-fetched example, but like that post where, you know, you mentioned like Lewis Hamilton and someone like that will catch wind and reach out or comment or like anything really cool like that.
There's two examples. One, I posted this image of a Jaguar Dtype. It was at an airfield. It was at a car show recent. I mean, this was now like in 2018, but it was at an airfield show in the UK or somewhere. I think it was in the UK. Once again, I read through every comment. This guy, Alex Henderson, commented on the photo and said, I used to work on this car in the 60s.
Wow.
It was an Acuria Cossi Jaguar E-Type, and I used to work on this exact car. So we started DMing, and he sent me pictures of him working on the car next to it from the 60s. And so I found out who took that image, and the person who took the photographer knew the current owner of the car. And so I connected the current owner with Alex. Alex happened to be going to Europe for a wedding. I think the car at the time was in the UK or was in Scotland or something. He was going to like Scotland for a wedding. And Alex ended up reuniting with the car.
Wow.
And he went for a drive in the car that he formerly worked on. He was like really worked on it when he was like 16.
Wow.
Alex is a painter, and so he when he met the current owner of the D-Type, he arrived with an oil painting of the picture that I posted, the car at the airfield, and he subsequently sent me a print of the car at the airfield.
That's very cool.
Which I have, yeah. So that's one experience that was like pretty cool. What was another one that I was gonna say? There's a photographer. His name is Mateo, and he took some images of Simon Kidston or Kidston Motor Cars. I don't know whether Simon owns it himself. Ferrari 250 GTO. So Kidston took this car and put in this like glass box. He like took it on this like water shuttle. It was like really cool thing that he did. And then this photographer Mateo took some images of it, and I reposted these images, totally not thinking anything of it. Like went viral, blew up, and it sort of kicked off Mateo's photography career in cars, or maybe his side business or whatever he's doing with it. He was so thankful that he made 10 prints of this image, like really high quality prints of it, and he sent me one, and I got it framed, and it's in my office.
That's awesome.
So
outside of stuff like that, are there any like crazy perks or like something you're like, you end up in a situation or at a place and you're like, this was completely because of this outlet, and like I can't believe that I'm here right now because I started an Instagram page like, you know, however many years ago?
You definitely get the opportunity to meet interesting people. So you get invited to events, you can go to events, and generally you have access to meet people. And you have I have some pre-existing connection with them because I can DM and a lot of people and like get access. That's pretty cool. But like I got invited once to a yacht party for Monaco F1.
Wow.
But like I couldn't go. It was like it gave me like 2-week heads up, and I was like, oh, I can't go to that. I get invited to a lot of interesting rallies in Europe, like car rallies to go on. Once again, like I need to like manage how much time this takes. We get great access, like for the rally that we put on, we get great access to people. So like Daniel Arsham is one of our guests.
That's cool.
We have a bunch of other super noteworthy. Jazz Dillon, who's like really awesome. I mean, he's just the nicest guy ever, but he's an awesome collector. He's based in Tennessee, I think. He brought his Porsche 962 on the rally.
Awesome.
And Oil Stain Lab guys came, and so we do some of that. It also works the other way too, where some of the connections I made from Instagram actually play into like my personal my career. So like I said, I'm a venture investor, run my own fund. So the way a fund works is you go raise money from limited partners, and then I deploy that capital into opportunities that hopefully return them more capital. And because of cars, like I've met investors in my fund, and it's been sort of this like weird circular thing that I just didn't even know that this would ever like come back. It was like I just went to something, met some people, and we talked and kept in touch and like chat about cars every now and then like all of a sudden a potential prospective investor who's quite a large investor in my fund ended up doing like back channel references with that person, and they're like, oh yeah, Hootie is like very meticulous and he's consistent, and the guy's like always on it. And like I didn't even have like a working relationship with that individual. It was like all through like cars, but it's just through like the conversation around cars, and I'm admittedly OCD about this stuff, and so like that person like is like, yeah, he's gonna be a good steward of capital. The more tangible perk is like, and like this is like I made that joke about like VNP 10, like 10% off. Like when I'm doing work on my cars, I have to buy parts like anyone else.
Sponsor.
Yeah, what I do is I actually identify the part that I want to get first, and then I reach out to that company and I offer a collab, and I'm like, look, I'll pay, like if it's 50% off or whatever, like I'll pay the 50%. I was going to buy the part anyway, but this way I can like highlight it, and then I get access to the person who is running that company, and then they give me information that other people won't get, and then I can help
other people.
Yeah, other people out with that
information.
information. So I can. Right. And I tell people that I get these parts at cost or whatever it is, but like I've done that with Pfister Motorsports, which makes like exhaust and parts for Porsche's. Darren Pfister is the man. He's the nicest guy ever. And then I've done that with BBI. So Dimitri at BBI, like I put a set of his uprights on my car. I've done that with some like Porsche folks where they've gotten me parts from Porsche, cool. At not at cost, but at like wholesale pricing. And so that's like a really cool aspect where like, and for me, it's like, the discount's nice, but I'm more so like being able to reach out. So now Dimitri and I have a relationship, and like he's working on something now. So like I'm like helping him out. And so it just like organically builds these connections through a shared, like an authentic shared experience.
Right. So we're getting to that time. So we're going to start to wrap up. We have one more thing for you that we've been doing with our guests as of late. So we're big fans of Grand Tour or Top Gear, and what they do is they have a racetrack that they get guests to race around. So our version of that is Mario Kart. So we're going to give you a controller, and we're going to see how fast you can get around. We use the same cart, the same character, and the same course.
Who's the character?
It's Mario, always.
All right.
So before we start that, how can people find you?
At Valvin Piston on Instagram. That's it. No other page.
Cool. We appreciate you. Yeah, we're going to do that thing we were talking about where we buy cars and fix them.
Until we start that page.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. That was another episode of J&B Body Talks. I'm who is Mikey is. This is who is Joe is. And we are now going to do my favorite segment of the show, which is Mario Kart. And see, you got that little boost in the front. That's a huge tip. All right. Do you play video games?
Not very frequently.
What do you do in your free time besides work on your cars?
I work, spend time with my family.
Nice.
That's it.
Where'd you go to school? High school, college?
High school, I went to Lexington High outside of Boston. College, I went to Northwestern University outside of Chicago.
You've traveled quite a bit, it sounds like, from our interview. What's the favorite place you've ever been to?
Favorite place I've ever been to? Favorite place for vacation, St. Bart's. Favorite place for a trip? I like Japan a lot.
Oh, yeah, I love Japan. What's a current car trend you hate?
Safari cars.
Safari cars?
Yeah.
Really?
I think it's way overdone. I think it was cool. I think what Lekkeen does is cool. I think the Dakar will probably make money for people that got in on MSRP. But I think that trend is tired.
As somebody who likes combustion engines, how do you feel about electric cars?
Electric cars are good for transportation, good for point A to point B. I don't have enough context to know whether they're good for the environment. I think that they're soulless. It's like driving a washing machine.
If you had to pick one to drive, which one would you pick?
One electric car, Tesla Model S Plaid, I guess.
How do you feel about the Cybertruck?
I think it's uniquely something that Elon Musk could only do because it is such a radical design. It would never get done in any other context. I think there's probably some kinks to work out with like the rusting issues, which I guess is
I
something.
saw that recently.
But like outside of that, like I think it's bold. I think it's like somewhat interesting. I'd never buy one.
So I didn't realize it said you lose on the screen if you don't beat it, but you had a good lap time.
What's my best lap?
You had a
41.8.
Perfect.
Dude, Elvis killed it.
Yeah, Elvis did
What
kill
was
it.
JT's time, best time?
We have to check. That might have been JT's best time.